Which of these stories will you be talking about tomorrow? Watergate Jr., the Republican operative who ran the pimp scam on ACORN, is arrested, charged by the FBI as part of the scheme to tamper with the phones in the offices of Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu of Louisiana. Arrested with James O'Keefe, 3 others, including the son of the acting U.S. attorney in Baton Rouge. He, one of 2 men claiming to be telephone repairmen, quote, each dressed in blue denim pants, blue work shirts, light green fluorescent vests, tool belts, and construction-style hard hats. O'Keefe, quote, later admitted to agents that he videotaped the others on a cell phone camera. Mighty oaks from little acorns grow. The deep felony legal trouble O'Keefe and the others face with Jonathan Turley. The politics with Richard Wolff. Can you hear me now?
Good evening from New York. Would you believe who dat gate? 4 people, among them the anti-ACORN conservative activist whom House Republicans tried to honor in a congressional resolution, and the son of the federal prosecutor in Baton Rouge, arrested yesterday inside the New Orleans offices of Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu, 2 of them claiming to be and dressed as telephone repairmen, with conservative boy wonder James O'Keefe recording it all. They are now charged in a criminal complaint of having entered under false pretenses for the purposes of committing a felony, and words like bug and wiretap are being thrown around. I think the story is likely to blow over. June 17, 1972, 5 men carrying electronic equipment and photographic gear arrested in a burglary at Democratic Party headquarters in Washington, trying to tamper with phones there. That story is today remembered as Watergate. Richard Wolff will address the heft of this political scandal. Jonathan Turley, the sobering fact that the potential jail time may be even heftier. The U.S. Attorney's Office today announcing the arrests. The FBI's criminal complaint and affidavit describing an extraordinary series of events. Suspects Joseph Basil and Robert Flanagan. Flanagan, the son of acting U.S. Attorney Bill Flanagan of Shreveport, each dressed in blue denim pants, blue work shirts, light green fluorescent vests, tool belts, and construction-style hard hats, arriving at Senator Landrieu's office and claiming to be telephone repairmen and asking for access to the main phone at the Landrieu reception desk. After handling the phone, the 2 asking for access to the main telephone closet under the pretense of needing to perform work on the main telephone system in Landrieu's offices. The men directed to another building where prosecutors say they again misrepresented themselves. Already at Landrieu's office when the men got there was this guy, the conservative activist James O'Keefe, infamous for his undercover work in which he, as a pimp, accompanied by young women posing as prostitutes, exposed how several workers at ACORN, the Association of Community Organizers for Reform Now, appeared to be offering the women advice on how to misuse government funds. Having gotten a taste for the limelight as the result of his hidden camera work, Mr. O'Keefe, the criminal complaint saying, admitting to having recorded the 2 fake telephone repairmen with his cell phone. O'Keefe, Flanagan, and Basil later arrested by the U.S. Marshals Service, along with a 4th young man, Stan Dye. Prosecutors saying only that Mr. Dye assisted in planning the operation. In other words, they're not saying much. The affidavit, thus far, reveals that Flanagan and Basil have admitted to federal agents that they were not telephone repairmen and that they entered the office of Senator Landrieu under false pretenses. O'Keefe and Dye have also admitted to federal agents that worked with Flanagan and Basil in the planning, coordination, and preparation of the operation. The FBI agent concluding there is probable cause to believe that Flanagan and Basil, by false and fraudulent pretense, attempted to enter and did in fact enter real property belonging to the United States for the purpose of willfully and maliciously interfering with a telephone system operated and controlled by the United States of America. If convicted just of these charges, and there could be others, the men face each a maximum term of 10 years in prison and a fine of $250,000. Senator Landrieu commenting tonight in a written statement, this is a very unusual situation, she says, and somewhat unsettling for me and my staff. The individuals responsible have been charged with entering federal property under false pretenses for the purposes of committing a felony. I am as interested as everyone else about their motives and purpose, which I hope will become clear as the investigation moves forward. Time now to call in our own Richard Wolff, author of Renegade. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
I just read from this FBI affidavit. Let me do it again. Maliciously interfering with a telephone system operated and controlled by the United States of America. If some Democrat operative, young liberal with a video camera, were alleged to have done this in the offices of a Republican senator somewhere in this country, no matter how rinky-dink the actual operation was or what color hat he was wearing, would not the right-wing echo chamber have already jumped to treason by now?
Well, if not treason, then possibly terrorism. It's easy to look at all of this, and you hear about the ridiculous costumes, which seem to have been taken from village people, and think, well, this is just a joke. I mean, the whole thing has seemed ridiculous. He has, and Glenn Beck has, described him as some sort of Sacha Baron Cohen figure. But the truth is that the impact of O'Keefe all along has been that this is, quote-unquote, some new form of journalism. There is nothing about investigative journalism that allows people to impersonate people and attempt to wiretap any phone, never mind a federal office. So, you know, the interesting thing isn't here what the conservatives would say about a hypothetical Democrat for doing this. It's what they said about O'Keefe at the time. This man was supposed to be the future of journalism. There was a typical column in the Washington Times where Richard Rahn of the Cato Institute said that O'Keefe was a role model for millions of Americans and a true American patriot. There are serious questions here tonight about not just the credibility of O'Keefe and his previous work, but about all those people who held him up as some kind of shining example for the media and for America's youth. Well,
he is a role model for those who are interested in going into the production or starring in our MSNBC series Lockup. Look, it was almost by accident, of course, when we talk about the original Watergate, and there's nothing at this point that suggests these two things are exactly equivalent other than the coincidences about the phones and the break-in. But the background raised it from a third-rate burglary to a president instructing his staff how to cover up crimes. Almost by accident, we got that information. Is this being, at this point, taken seriously politically in Washington? And is there, in fact, any indication that O'Keefe has ever gotten a dime from any Republican or conservative organization?
Well, we don't know what his funding has been. There have been lots of questions asked and not much information has come out. But we know for one fact that his media sponsorship, the web of media coverage that has promoted this guy from having an interesting YouTube video to being a serious political topic that leads to congressional resolutions, has come through this very strange and new nexus of certain websites like Andrew Breitbart's work and also Fox News. So a model that really began in the 90s with Drudge and Lewinsky now is much closer to the political mainstream. Someone like O'Keefe, without any checks and balances on what he does, can find his way being pushed heavily online into Fox News and into the top part of the agenda of some Republican members of Congress.
Even if he freelanced this, let's assume that's what we have now is all there is. Will it be possible for Republicans to run from this man after they, as you point out, spent so much time building him up on the ACORN story? And we're not just talking about bloggers. 31 House Republicans supported a resolution to honor him after the ACORN Pimp sting.
Yeah, there should be pressure on the members of Congress who held him up as an example to at least revisit their opinions, because we're not talking about someone being accused of unethical procedures in their pursuit of journalism. This was targeted towards a United States senator. So at the very least, there needs to be some kind of revisiting. And I just think what we're seeing here, this story popped up in September. It was a critical period to trash the Obama administration, tying in ACORN now with the ACORN stories through the election. This wasn't, it didn't pop out of nothing, and it was an incredibly important tool for the Republicans to caricature and attack progressives and also Barack Obama.
MSNBC's Richard Wolff. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this. Great, thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Keith.
For more on the